Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Film Fights, where today, I'll be comparing two Christopher Nolan films to celebrate his latest release, Dunkirk. Not only are they two of the greatest superhero films of all time, but two of the greatest movies of all time. Of course, I'm talking about Batman Begins and The Dark Knight. Now some of you may be thinking, where is The Dark Knight Rises? Well, in my opinion, it has nothing on the first two movies. It's pretty good, but not great. Still the third best Batman movie. Well, fourth actually. Maybe I'll talk more about it sometime. Like all my film fights, this video contains spoilers for both movies. If you haven't seen them, then I suggest you do so before watching this video. Hit that watch later button and come back. But without further ado, on to the fight. Which Batman movie is the best? Batman Begins or The Dark Knight? I'm breaking the film fight formula a bit here, because instead of talking about the story, I'm just going to jump into the characters, because both Batman Begins and The Dark Knight are character-driven movies. The choices and growth of the protagonists make the story itself, so there's no need to talk about both separately. It would actually be kind of impossible. Of course, in both movies, Bruce Wayne is the main protagonist, but he faces different trials. Batman Begins is a coming-of-age story. Bruce starts the movie lost, traveling the world in order to understand the criminal mind and to search for a way to fight injustice. We see him in a Chinese prison brawling the other prisoners. Whatever his intentions were, he had lost all direction and purpose until being taken in by Ra's al Ghul and the League of Shadows. In Batman Begins, we don't only see how physically Bruce Wayne becomes Batman, but we see how his philosophy gets molded too. With the League of Shadows, he learns to fight opponents physically and mentally, but he also absorbs parts of their beliefs. He learns about vigilantism and conquering the fears that have haunted him his whole life. Bruce also picked up the idea of using whatever means possible to achieve justice, including killing. He returns to Gotham for a court hearing because the man who shot his parents, Joe Chill, will be released if he gives information on the crime lord Carmine Falcone. Bruce just gets lucky that one of Falcone's people kills him first. His lifelong friend Rachel finds out that he wanted to kill Joe and slaps him. This is where Bruce begins to diverge from the League of Shadows. It wasn't true justice he was searching for, but revenge. Bruce goes back to the League of Shadows and refuses to kill on his final test, believing he shouldn't be the one to determine life and death, because if he did, then he'd be no better than the criminals that he fights. Man of Steel had a large problem, and that we don't really know where Superman's morals came from. That is, if he even has morals at all. It just gave us a superhero without telling us anything about him. Batman Begins very naturally shows the moral journey Bruce takes to become Batman. Much of Bruce Wayne's character in The Dark Knight is set up in Batman Begins, surprisingly enough. Bruce knew that a day would come when Gotham wouldn't need Batman anymore, and when that day came, him and Rachel could be together. Only problem is that she's now seeing Harvey Dent. Isn't it odd that she's always in a relationship with her employer? No wonder why she got the job of assistant DA. I'm sure she was hired because of her experience. So Bruce is seeing that Harvey is the man that Gotham needs, but not the one that it deserves. So he has that situation going on. Like I said in my very first video, sometimes the best stories aren't about people who go through a change, but people who refuse to change in the face of adversity. Batman struggles to hold on to the moral code he established in Batman Begins. The Joker's killing people left and right, and he feels tremendous pressure to make things easier by killing him or by turning himself in, but the second isn't important right now. Killing the Joker is by far the easier choice than keeping him alive just to break out and wreak more havoc. Is Batman even doing the moral thing by keeping him alive? Should he spare others by killing some? Are his morals doing more harm than good? As Ra's al Ghul put it, he lacks the will to do all that is necessary. It was great seeing the creation of Batman and his morals, and then it was just as good seeing them put to the test. Batman Begins has a great hierarchy of villains that Batman needs to bring down. On the lowest level, there's Carmine Falcone. Falcone is the head of the mob in Gotham and has politicians and law enforcement under his influence. His control is so vast that he could literally do anything he wants and nobody's gonna touch him. Whoever tries magically disappears. Maybe they go to Narnia or something. I don't really know. Falcone also uses his influence to bring hallucination-inducing drugs into Gotham. Then there's Dr. Crane, or Scarecrow. He's kind of like the middleman between Ra's and Falcone, going between the two and delivering information. Dr. Crane uses his connections to Arkham Asylum so he could get the drugs delivered by Falcone into Gotham's water supply. Then Ra's al Ghul comes as the final villain. Throughout most of the movie, he presented himself as a man named Ducard, who trains the members of the League of Shadows, and he always has a decoy, so his true identity is never revealed. Ducard reveals himself as the real Ra's al Ghul and commences his plan to destroy Gotham. The League of Shadows takes it upon themselves to wipe out a civilization once it becomes too unjust. Gotham, being controlled by the mob, and with a very apathetic population, was an easy next choice. Similar to Batman, they resort to vigilante justice to restore order. But Batman doesn't believe he should be the one to determine who lives and who dies. That's too much power for one man. And he especially doesn't agree with all of Gotham being wiped out when there are still many good individuals like Rachel, Alfred, and Sergeant Gordon. Batman would rather let guilty men go free than punish innocents, even if it meant all injustice would be wiped out. To destroy Gotham, Ra's al Ghul used Falcone's power to transport drugs, Crane to make sure everything goes according to plan, to weaponize the fear-inducing drugs, and to put it in the water supply. Ra's then had a microwave emitter stolen from Wayne Enterprises to vaporize the water and release the drugs into the air, destroy Gotham through its own fear. To keep Falcone and Crane working for him, he lies to them and keeps them thinking that he only wanted to take the city hostage. Like I said when I talked about The Phantom Menace, Liam Neeson is an amazing actor, easily one of the best of our time. He trained Batman and Obi-Wan. This guy is awesome. I also thought there was a great dynamic between Batman and Ra's al Ghul. Ra's is like a father figure to Bruce. When Bruce was lost and hopeless, he took him in and gave him direction. Thomas Wayne, his real father, told Bruce to not be afraid after he was shot. But it wasn't until he met Ra's that he learned to conquer his fears. Ra's even told Bruce in the end that it should be him who should be standing by his side as he destroys Gotham. But their two philosophies begin to diverge when it comes to the lengths to take in order to fight injustice. Ra's believes in doing all that is necessary, a line he uses a lot, while Bruce believes in showing compassion because in his words, it separates us from them. I love the villain plot in Batman Begins, but I have to say, The Dark Knights is just as good. Something that The Dark Knight Rises was missing is the philosophical battle between Batman and the antagonist. Instead of offering a distortion of Batman's views, the Joker is the complete opposite, yet very similar too. Batman is a man who looked at the world, saw something was wrong, and used theatrics to inspire people. The Joker does the same thing, only he has a different message to spread. He sees Batman establishing order in Gotham, but believes himself that there is no real order. He dresses up like a clown to spread his opposing philosophy. The Joker demonstrates Newton's third law, stating that all actions have equal and opposite reactions. That would be him. Batman cleaned up the streets and inspired the best in people. As Alfred puts it, the mob became so desperate that they turned to a man they didn't fully understand. The Joker believes that people are just a chain of reactions, willing to do whatever they can to survive, even if that brings out the worst in them. People go along with society because it's easy, but once things get tough, then they'll go into their chaotic nature. He tries to use Batman as an example, pushing him to the absolute limit. The Joker is fascinated by Batman, and how unwilling he is to break his morals. Batman is a flaw in the Joker's philosophy, and that's what intrigues the Joker so much. Batman won't bend, but Harvey will. Harvey was Gotham's White Knight, but proved that anyone could be corrupted. He himself even said,
"You're either die a hero, or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain."
I like the distinction between the Joker and a lot of other villains. He doesn't care about material things such as money. In fact, he burns a huge pile of it. All he wants is to spread his message. And of course, I have to talk about how great Heath Ledger's performance was. Heath Ledger is still the best live-action Joker to this day. I mean, have you seen Jared Leto? He hasn't even come close. Both Batman Begins and The Dark Knight have a central theme. For Batman Begins, it's fear. For The Dark Knight, it's chaos. Fear is important to every character in Batman Begins. Well, maybe not everyone. Fear is a tool that Batman wields against the criminal underground. Of course, he dresses in black and stealthily takes criminals down, but what he also does is empower the citizens of Gotham, who were either too scared or unable to fight the massive corruption and deterioration of their city. Falcone uses fear differently. For him, it's a way to stay in control. No cop, judge, or prosecutor is willing to touch him because he either pays them off or keeps them too afraid. Whoever tries to take him down gets bumped off. That is, until Batman shows up. Ra's and Dr. Crane use fear in a similar way. They both use it to manipulate others to shift things where they want them. Ra's hangs over Falcone and uses him to transport his fear toxin into Gotham. Scarecrow gets Falcone and his thugs into Arkham Asylum instead of a proper prison, so he can test out his fear toxin. Batman uses fear to uplift Gotham, Falcone uses it to keep things the way they are, and Ra's uses it to destroy Gotham. Rachel and Gordon don't use fear themselves, but are the victims of it. Rachel is the assistant district attorney, but in a city controlled by the mob, she's hard-pressed to gather the resources to take down Falcone. Jim Gordon is one of the few good cops left in the city. Everyone else turns a blind eye to Falcone and the mob, and doesn't care about the current state of Gotham. Although Gordon tries, he doesn't seem to be making a difference. Batman Begins also has an ongoing theme of justice. The goal of the League of Shadows is to re-establish justice in the world. To achieve their goals, they've sacked Rome, put plague rats on trade ships, and burned London. Whenever a civilization fell to injustice, they made it their job to restore balance. So I'm expecting their return any time now. Any minute now. The League sees the justice system as corrupt and unable to distribute proper justice, so they take it upon themselves. Rachel is the exact opposite. She only works within the system, believing there's a way to bring Falcone down without going beyond the limitations of the law. Batman is a mix of the two. Of course, he goes outside the law in order to bring Falcone and other criminals in. Similar to Ra's, he uses fear to clean up the streets. The difference is that Batman doesn't see himself as the distributor of justice. Like Rachel, he uses the legal system for that. He just goes above the law in order to get the process moving faster, so he's a bit of both. The Dark Knight is about chaos and order, two complete opposites, of course represented by Batman and the Joker. Batman has spent the time between movies to establish order in Gotham City. Although he was a big contributor to the brighter Gotham we see, there's a lot of credit given to those he inspired, those like Harvey Dent. While Bruce Wayne is happy with the steps the people of Gotham have taken, the Joker believes that everyone's just buying into a facade, that there is no order. People are chaotic and animalistic by nature, and at the first sign of trouble, they'll resort to their primitive savage ways. But the Joker doesn't cause chaos alone. He creates situations where citizens themselves will. He instills chaos by threatening to blow up a hospital if lawyer Coleman Reese isn't killed in an hour after Reese goes on TV to reveal Batman's identity. Mass panic ensues along with multiple assassination attempts of Reese, proving Joker's point. The final battle between Batman and the Joker isn't left up to a fistfight. It was about which ideal would prevail. Are people chaotic by nature, or are we still good deep down inside? The Joker loaded two boats with explosives, one holding normal civilians fleeing Joker's rampage in Gotham, and the other holding prisoners also being transported out of the city. Each boat can save itself by blowing up the other, or both sets of explosives will be detonated if neither one gets blown up. So this is the ultimate test between the two. Will the people of Gotham kill a boat of prisoners in order to save themselves? Will the prisoners wait to be killed, or would they save themselves? We see that Batman's ideas prevail when neither boat takes out the other. This win only lasts a moment as Batman discovers that Harvey went insane. The Joker was able to corrupt the most upstanding man in Gotham, showing that no one is immune to corruption. Now, it would be hard to fully talk about The Dark Knight without discussing how it relates to the time period in which it was made, especially because some of The Dark Knight seems like social commentary. As we all know, the 2000s were, and still are, a time of terrorism and fear of terrorism, and the American government took many steps to ensure the safety of the public. But The Dark Knight begs the question, how far should we be willing to go in order to catch a terrorist? The terrorists in question are of course Bin Laden in real life and the Joker in the movie. Inspired by Lucius Fox, Batman figured out how to use waves from cell phones to see any inch of the city he needed to find the Joker, using civilians' personal property and data unknowingly in order to catch him. The obvious parallel to real life being wiretapping. Mr. Fox questions the ethicality of having such a device at Wayne Enterprises and promises to resign as long as it still exists. Batman agrees that it's too much power for one man or one entity to have, so he tells Lucius to type his name in once they're finished. Unknown to Lucius, his name is the self-destruct code. Also, this may be a stretch, but The Dark Knight does have a bit to say about enhanced interrogation. In The Dark Knight, Batman beats on the Joker to learn where Harvey and Rachel are after they disappeared. It kind of worked. They saved Dent at least. But did Batman go too far in his techniques? The same question is asked when it comes to waterboarding that happens with terrorists with information. I'm not sure if the movie has a clear stance on whether these actions are right or wrong. Even though Rachel dies, Dent is still saved. And even though it was agreed that the machine had to be destroyed, Batman still caught the Joker. But both Batman Begins and The Dark Knight really paid attention to having the movie layered with themes. Although both movies were directed by Christopher Nolan, the action feels very different in each one. Batman Begins has a much faster pace, as the more ninja side of Batman is being emphasized. The camera really puts you in the place of the criminals, as you barely see Batman when he's fighting. He's either snatching people up in the shadows, or quickly dispatching a group of thugs. I love how we're put in the criminals' shoes. The action really emphasizes the theme of fear. We also get the tumbler scene, where Batman is driving on rooftops. There's also the great train fight scene, where we see Ra's and Bruce physically and morally dueling. I especially love the tumbler scene though. It's awesome how so much of Nolan's movies are done with practical effects. It was actually there, pancaking cop cars. That just amazes me. The Dark Knight, on the other hand, gives more of an outside perspective when it comes to the action. The fighting isn't nearly as fast-paced. It goes back to the tone of the movies. Batman Begins is darker, dirtier, and rougher. The Dark Knight is brighter, more hopeful, and neater. We see this through the visual storytelling of Gotham. So we see a lot more of Batman fighting in the open and in better lighting. We don't get the same stealth scenes that we do in Batman Begins, but there are still a lot of amazing scenes. There's the bank heist, the interrogation scene, the Bat-Pod flipping the truck, and Batman in Hong Kong. The interrogation scene in particular is such a classic scene. Batman and the Joker staring each other face to face as the Joker explains his ideology to Batman. Just seeing these two completely opposite forces going face to face is amazing. Deciding which one has better action is tough, because they both have so many great scenes, and not only are they thrilling, but they encapsulate the themes of the movies. There's great action, but there's emotional weight behind every punch, and Hans Zimmer's tremendous score helps out both movies. For all my previous film fights, I always started knowing who'd be the clear winner, but this one's different. Both Batman Begins and The Dark Knight are masterpieces, easily two of the best of the superhero genre and the 21st century in general. Both are completely deserving of an episode of My Favorite Things. They have excellent characters, deep themes and concepts woven into every aspect of the film, brilliant action, fantastic villains, great cinematography, and awesome soundtracks. But which Nolan film is better? The winner is both. Wow, that was a cop-out, but it's true. There's no clear winner here. Which one you like better is completely up to personal preference. Do you like the stealthy, fast-paced fight scenes in Batman Begins, or the cleaner, more open ones in The Dark Knight? Do you like seeing two completely opposite ideologies facing one another, or different intensities of the same thing? Do you like seeing the tumbler jump off rooftops, or the Bat-Pod flipping a truck? No matter which way you slice it, there's no clear best Batman film. They're both excellent. So, this is the first film fight tie. Huh. Thanks for watching. See you next week.